So yeah, we'll get started. Just jumping into it. So I guess we just want to start with a line. We'll just picture this as like the backbone of the spine of our feather, just to be flexible or whatever. And we'll go up to maybe just like 50 points. And then we're just gonna want maybe, with this resample node, I think I showed this to you guys last time, but if you turn off maximum segment length, basically it doesn't change the topology at all, but you can still use this to assign the curve view attribute. So if you control middle mouse button on this node and then click curve view, then you can see you have a attribute that's going from 0 to 1 along the length of the curve. So that's pretty nice. Just always handy to have that. The curve I'm working with right now, the y coordinate is going from 0 to 1 automatically. But just to make this, if you're making like a tool for someone else to use, or you just want to make it flexible, because we're adding this now, we can support like any curve, any input geometry. So it's a bit more flexible, I guess. And let me see, just pop open a bit of these references. Maybe we'll get the ref going. But yeah, we'll just get one of these in there. Just to have it handy. I lost my, there it is. All right, get it back. I have to do it. There it is. Okay, Poggers, we got a reference working. How's it going, Geronimo? All right. So I guess there's a few different ways that we could do it. We just want to start with points, and then we can start to build the rest of these curves. Not too much here, just getting going, cracking some feathers. So yeah, I think what we're gonna want to do is maybe set up a attribute for the length, like a profile. So if you look at the overall shape of feathers, they usually tend to start like very close to the shape, and then at the top it's kind of like a heart shaped, or maybe a diamond or something like that. So with this profile, this will be like strand length profile. We'll just use the P scale to define this. And then we can make a ramp, and we'll call it profile. And the input, or the lookup position of the ramp, will be a curve view. And then should be just able to click that, and you can just copy geometry to it to make sure it's working. This is the target points and our line. So the line is just going up. We could move it over here to go in one direction. Go the other way. Now you can see this ramp. You just take it, rotate it horizontal, then you can see the result is basically what we're getting over there. And then I think maybe with the length of these lines right here, this is just, I'm going to control the global kind of length setting of everything. And then we might want to change the interpolation of this. So if you hold down Shift, click on the Start key or the Start flag, and then click on the End one, then you can select all the keys or all the entries to your ramp. And just do maybe monotone. Sometimes the endpoints for these, it's a gem. It's a bit of just a trick or a gotcha, I guess. I feel like they have been adding flexibility somewhat to the ramp, like a bit of hidden features. So I might switch. I don't know, this end one looks a bit weird. You know, it's kind of like, sometimes you just want like an extra key in there, I guess. Replace the ramp editor with the animation editor UI. I think some people have done that before. I don't know, but you could do it. It's not as easy because it's not like all in the same panel. But if you have like the attribute create, yeah, you can set it up, and then if you use the ch ramp, there's like a hscript function to look up into it, but yeah, it's not as intuitive. But yeah, so I think we should be okay. This looks somewhat decent for right now. Maybe I'll put the first key up a little bit, just so we have a gap at the bottom of the feather. Yeah. Then I might want to make this line, maybe just more curves overall. And then it looks like here with the angle of them, they start kind of downward facing, and then they slowly rotate to be aligned kind of with the top of the curve. I'm trying to think what the best way is to set that up. We were trying a little bit of this oriental on curve yesterday, doing like a curve force with it. So if we just visualize these, we have a normal that just points along the curve, just in the direction of the curve, and up. So we might be able to blend between the two of those to achieve this same kind of look. So I think we should be okay with it. It does, you notice it did kind of throw off our direction. So I'll just go in and fix that. It's kind of like the copy to points node without an n attribute. It will just go with like the default direction, but as soon as you add these attributes, it changes the default direction that the things will point in. So this one will do blend direction. So we're starting with this normal direction. It's kind of going this way. And then we want to blend into the up direction. We can do normal. That's going to be like our output direction. We want to try doing a lerp from normal to up. And then the blend amount, we can just use curve view. Nothing happened. So I think we want to actually get rid of the up vector. Ooh, I didn't get it right. Ah, you're right. Thank you. So I think we have another problem now. One of these is pointing the wrong direction. Thank you. Saved. All right. So yeah, it looks like we just had to negate that or flip it around, and then we got it working somewhat properly. I think so. Maybe. One thing I'm gonna do is just polywire to visualize like the thickness. We can go back to that and tweak it a bit if we want to really get it looking nice. But just for right now, to visualize like the length of everything. Yeah. And then this lerp function, it isn't the best one to use with vectors. So when it's interpolating things, it doesn't necessarily keep the same length across all of them. One thing you can do is normalize the result. So that will just make sure that all of these vectors are the same length. Looks like that didn't change it. The other issue with this lerp is that it doesn't keep, like when it's adjusting the vectors, it doesn't necessarily do it smoothly. So that's why they have the slurp function. This might be okay for what we're doing, but it's just something to be aware of. You can convert these into quaternions and then do this spherical linear interpolation. But for right now, just for working quickly, I think this should be okay. Yeah, I think this should be all right for right now. So we could do just a mirror, I believe. And then the direction. It doesn't work. Let me take a look. Oh no. Where did all these normals come from? This is the... so I think it's just showing the template geometry that I have on. Yeah, I thought it should be... Get it back. You think it just has to be negative? I think these normals aren't truly like... I don't think it's actually reversing the normal attribute. I think maybe it's reversing like the winding order of the connectivity. So I guess we don't even really need a mirror. What I can do is just maybe with the facet node. Yeah, maybe the negative scale could work. You can also do this. But yeah, I think we could do negative. Oof. Oof. Negative. Oof. Bummer. But yeah, I think just this facet, reverse normal. You could do it in a wrangle as well, just multiply -1. But yeah, I think, and then just merge them back together. Something is play. So I think it has to do with this, the up vector. And the orient along curve isn't putting the, so I guess the up vector is what this is generating, and it's not starting off like perfectly. So if I just visualize it, I guess it is perfectly aligned to the x-axis. We could do perhaps just swapping them. Seems a little bit better, but it still is getting a bit of that flex to it. Getting burned. Could be okay to keep going with it, but I think it's definitely we're running into some issues. So I might just rotate in Vex if that lerp isn't working. Yeah, I'm trying to think what the best way is to blend between the orientations to kind of create that kind of fan shape. I thought this was going to work pretty well, but I was a bit mistaken. All right, so I'm maybe just going to try this in another node. I'm just going to work a little bit more deeper into Vex. So we'll have a vector, it will just be the direction. It will set to Z. And do another one. Maybe I'll just, I guess I'll just keep going with up for right now. I'm just gonna work like this instead of with all the other nonsense and see what happens. So I think I want my line here to be 0, 0, 1. And then this right here is the direction you're controlling that this will point along. So it's a little bit confusing, sorry for that, but basically if your copy is aligned along the z-axis, that z-axis, then this vector or this direction will be used like explicitly to align it. You can see now we're starting at just pure positive z and then moving purely to up based off of the curve view. So I believe this other stuff was just a bit too confusing. We were just doing too many steps with it. And then should be able to move this over, but we're running into the problem that when this is aligned at the top, it's getting flipped poorly. So what we want to do is kind of a special kind of mirror. So if I just do normal multiply equals 1 for x, 1 for y, and -1 for z, then it will just mirror along the z axis. It's possible we could do the transform. I don't know why this is yeah, I think that's just a little bit too wonky, so we'll leave it like that. Maybe it looks like we want the top of it to still be, we don't want to shrink the lines to 0 at the very top, right? It's something to move forward with. So we still have curve U, which is nice to keep, and then P. So they did kind of redo this copy stop a little bit with the attributes that it will hold on to. So previously it would always keep your normal attribute, but I think with 18 or maybe 18.0, I think just with Houdini 18 they improved it a little bit so that it's not always overriding your normal. But when you're starting to do like these procedural workflows with a lot of copying and attribute management, you do have to kind of keep an eye on this stuff. Because the up, I still want to definitely keep, or I'm sorry, the curve U, I still want to keep that around to manipulate some other stuff. All right. So this one we'll just do mirror n along z axis. Pretty good. And then I'm going to want to probably add some noise to this stuff. Trying to think if we want to do that directly in Vellum, or keep it like this. Let's just leave it like this for right now, and we could go back and add some noise to it if we really want to. It's kind of like with the drape that I was doing. When I saved out the draped cloth, it kind of baked in the distortion or the stretch and everything like that into the cloth. So that's why I'm thinking with Vellum, we might want to wait until the simulation. So we could maybe control this with stiffness attributes or bend to allow certain parts of it to react more easily to some wind or something like that. So I think we could just move directly into Vellum. We'll do Vellum configure hair. And probably good to go, right? Probably not, but we'll see what we get. So just do the solver, and for sure we don't want gravity, but we do want something to test with. So what I usually do is just jump right in and do a pop force with amplitude on the noise, just to get a bit of curl noise. Oh no, so our lines aren't attached, but simulation's working. It's verified working, but we just need to pin the geometry. So we can do that either with an extra node, or as well just doing this pinpoints if we make a group. And then with these lines, we can actually just define the group before we copy them to the feather, the spine. So if I just do group, we can call this root. We want it to be a point group, and we should just be able to type in 0. and then that will always be the base for the first starting point of our all the curves. So even up here, all of the point number, before it gets copied, the first point will get added to that group. So let's give it a try. Seems to get it. Something's happening. So I think just with the stiffness and bend, it's not letting it move around too much. And then it's just also the resolution of these curves. We don't have enough detail in this mesh to describe any kind of meaningful like bending throughout we just have 2 points. So with this line, I think we might go up to like 12 just to give it some more detail, some more resolution, starting to get something happening. Maybe this bend, just try different stiffnesses. Pretty cool. So we can probably override this bend, just even try it even lower. So we could even control and probably get a good amount of this look using the bend, or even like different varieties of feather. Different animals, I guess, have different manginess to their feathers, whether they're I don't know, like trying to think. I don't know which animals have particularly. I know you see them sometimes like for feather pens and stuff. Maybe this has the taxonomy of it or something. But yeah, it seems like certain, I don't know if it's just the age of the birds or something like that. But yeah, we could keep going. So up here, this, we could say set amount of fibers. So I'm calling each one of these essentially a fiber. We could try doing different amounts of detail. Looks like it's starting to get a bit too slow when we go super high. I think in general for like hair and stuff like that, anywhere between like 4 and 8 points per strand is really all you need to get like a pretty realistic result. You can always do some additional smoothing or subdivision after the simulation. All right. So the next thing we might want to add is like the ability for this base curve to move around. So like this underlying spine geometry. I'm trying to think what the best area is to do. So I'm thinking if we do it down here, this attribute VOP, you can set it to update normals if you move the geometry. If I just do anti-alias noise, vector, I usually do the four-dimensional noise, and then generate a 3D noise. So 4D input, this lets you offset time, or the 4th dimension of it if you need. It's just nice to have that flexibility built in. Oh no. So it looks like we lost the normal. Yeah, I don't know, maybe we don't want it to automatically calculate it using that setting. Seems like it's doing a good enough job without it. And the last thing we might want to do is with the bind, we just bring in curve view, and then we can use that to mask the amplitude. And we probably don't want this noise to be as rough, just a slow kind of wiggle. And I think we can use it to have the noise flow along the feather. So if we just add time to it, looks like it's going the wrong way. So just negate time. Now it's kind of going just from the origin upwards. If you want to control the frequency of that, you can just adjust it with the fourth dimension. So we'll see what happens. I don't know if this is gonna be interesting or usable, but it's cool to test out. So with this, we just want to add match animation. Looks like some of these, the ones that didn't have any length, are a bit of a problem. I think the best way to get rid of that is just before we actually create those curves. So basically, we're still making a bunch of curves with just 0 length down here at the bottom, because the ramp that I set up, this is 0 for a lot of it. So if I just make a blast at the very bottom, we can check the p-scale attribute and say if it's less than just a really small number, delete it or blast it. You just want to set this to points, and then we get rid of the little invisible curves. So let's just say pull p-scale too small. So it looks like Vellum was just having an issue with the ones being too small before that. And then it looks like this pinned animation is a bit of an issue. Might want to turn it into a soft pin type. I think the permanent was just like too jerky of a constraint. And I think the stiffness, we were just a bit too low before. Let's try maybe just playing around with the noise for the distortion, the deformation. So it looks like the way this stuff starts out, it's kind of the issue I was talking about earlier, where it's like baking in a weird deformation. Maybe just do a little less. Along the length of whatever you called them. Yeah, we could do variable stiffness. I was just calling them fibers. Kind of like a hair fiber, or I'm not sure what. Some zoologist probably has named the parts of a feather. But yeah, I was just calling them fibers. So yeah, it's possible doing variable stiffness along the length of each fiber, and then probably overall along base to tip of the single feather could work well. Some smaller than fibers called barbs. It's possible. It's possible, but that could even be sub barbule. Barbule? Vein. They're saying the spine is, I guess there's two different barbs. I guess they are barbs. I don't know. Barbule. All right, I'll call them barbs. So yeah, I'm trying to think now what the best way is to get that information. So I think maybe just starting here at the old school Jack. How's it going? So I think we're just right here when the barb is at the origin, we can define that attribute. You found me from YouTube. Good to see you. You make the jump over to Twitch, hopping on the live end of things. So yeah, I think so what I'm gonna do is make another curve view. But this one, instead of naming it the same thing, it's gonna cause issues when these get copied onto the existing geometry. So like, we visualize it here, you can see this curve view from this input is overwriting it. So we're starting at 0 and going up to 1. Bast is coming through with the facts. From the root to the ends in this order. So you have shaft, barb, we have forget my hotkeys. Ah, there, just zoom in like that. Barbule? Booklet? Running out of resolution. But yeah, that sounds good. I think barbule is interesting. It's like, I've never heard it. You guys ever use the pluralize function? They have this built in that's supposed to find the plural of whatever word you give it. So I don't know, even with like, I think there's some curveballs you can throw it with, like zebra or like crows, that if it will say it's like a murder of crows. This is, I think a lot of programmers I don't know if it's just an English thing, but yeah, I've messed around with it a little bit. It doesn't have everything built in, but it does do can figure them out, some standard things out with it. So yeah, we don't want to keep using the same attributes. Jan C4D, how's it going? So I'll just rename this here to stiffness. So yeah, we could just do dear God. That's the way the German people say it. Yeah, and then you can see we have curve view and stiffness. Let's just reorganize this a little bit. Yeah, so we could just do this remap. This might be the easiest way. Whoa, get out of there. Pretty straightforward. We just take stiffness, and then we can go from 0 and 1 and set it. So we probably don't want to make something like a stiffness of 0. We're gonna want the maximum or full amount of stiffness at the base of the barb, and then we just do like 0.25. So we're going full stiffness to 25% of the stiffness. And then we just need to move that information to the constraints. So it gets a bit tricky with Vellum because it has the constraints in this extra chain over here. It looks like it's visualizing the pins or the constraints as these sphere primitives. But each one of these segments over here has specific attributes. You can see it has the stiffness. Those are all uniform values right now, so that's why they're all the same color. But I think we just split this out. So there's bend and stretch, and we just want to change stretch, I believe. So they're on top of each other, which makes it a bit difficult. Can you multiply by an attribute? We could try that, yeah. That's probably a better way if possible. I was just gonna do an attribute transfer. But yeah, I forgot that they have that extra box. Getting a bit too wild there. So let's try it with stiffness, scale by attribute. So we want to do it to bend stiffness. Thank you. Save me from going too off the beaten path there. So I'll just rename my stuff over here. So what I was gonna do was like attribute transfer like this and apply it directly onto the constraints. It's a bit brute force method, or a bit of a hack. It's like if side effects provides an easy way to do it, then it's a lot easier to adhere to their workflow instead of kind of fighting against the stream, swimming upstream or whatever. Let's see if it works. Yeah, I think it's better they don't learn the hack, right? This is sometimes what I call it is like the blessed way. It's not the best way, but it's the blessed. Like it's the ordained, the sanctioned method of working. So I'm just trying to verify right now that it's working. Let's try setting this to 2.5 and then maybe just move these really low. Yeah, and it does look like it is working. So just 2.5 I think is too strong. It's possible some of that like noise, you would filter it out with some additional substeps. So I just went up to 4 from 1. It looks like that perhaps was the problem. It was just like it needed a bit more substeps to stabilize. So yeah, and then if we want to add in a bit of the differentiation, we can do maybe just with the attribute wrangle. So we have bend stiffness going from the low value, I'm sorry, a high value to a low value, and curve view. So if we use the wrangle here, we should be able to take the bend stiffness. You just multiply it against the curve view. Didn't like it. Maybe I just have to redo. Oh, I did it again. Keep doing that today. All right. So now everything down here won't have stiffness. What I might do is like a remap. So do a fit function. Maybe like 0.25, 0.5, and change that range to 0 and 1. So I'll bring the visualizer back up. So with these numbers, it's kind of just doing like contrast or a bit of extra remapping of this curve view range. So you kind of see, just instead of a linear like 0 to 1, you can dial it into a more specific band or area of the feather. Maybe a bit bigger. And then I don't know about going all the way down to 0, maybe just like 0.1. It doesn't really visualize it because this automatically adapts to the minimum and maximum values, but I think because we're scaling it based off of the bend stiffness, we want to make sure we're not scaling it all the way down to 0 in some areas. So I don't know if this stretch is kind of throwing things off. Seems a bit odd. Let me just make sure of something here. So set a color, go ramp from attribute. So that looks expected. I might just change this root to tip of the barb amount to be more subtle. So overall, I want to see a bit more differentiation down here. I might try getting rid of these pin constraints and just adding it with another Vellum node. The bar is more bendy toward the end, not uniform along the entire length. Yes, I think it is more bendy toward the end. What I'm just trying to dial in right now is getting the bendiness at the bottom, like differentiation between the bottom and the top. I wasn't able to get anything like that, so I'm trying to just adjust things and see if it's possible. So I'm basically building this out into constraints for attaching it to the geometry. I think if you set it up this way, it's creating point-based attributes to say pin to animation. But sometimes doing constraints like this, it seems like I've had a bit more like stable results sometimes. I think instead of attach to geometry, I want to do pin to target though. The main reason I think is that you can adjust like the stiffness of how much it's trying to catch up to the surface. But with this, or whatever it's attached to, but with this, I feel like you don't get those settings, so you don't have as much control. I'm just trying it this way to see what happens. So now, what I should be able to do. Bendiness can propagate from position along the root, then you can color. Yeah, I don't have, I don't think I'm having too much trouble. Like, I'm visualizing it here. We could go to a different, maybe the infrared is a bit easier to visualize. So I have pretty good control over how much bendiness I want to set up. This is, I guess, remap. We'll just do stiffness along barb and shaft. This one is stiffness along shaft. So I have, in terms of setting up the actual attribute, I have pretty good control over the ranges that I would want this to be dialed in at. But I think it's just how the Vellum solver is interpreting these values. I mean, we could try turning off just need the magic values. It might be that I think, like, so I'm turning off the attaching to geometry. There was just that jiggling, like vibrating that was happening with I could go back to it here. We'll do the root, and maybe before it was set to match animation, I wasn't getting that intense vibrating, but when I set it to match animation, that was the main reason I started to build out this other stuff. It seems like, I don't know, when it might be because this is the point-based pins. So I was moving my constraints here to actually build. So if I just do a null, whoa, do a null instead of for each number. Look at the spreadsheet here. This will actually build like the primitive constraints that will be pin to orient and pin to position. And if you do this, if you try to do the same thing up here with this one, this doesn't actually build those primitive constraints. You think it's the damping ratio? It might be that. So you can see this just has bend and stretch. So the pin constraints actually get set up on the actual points, based off of bend, and not bend stiffness, but I believe that there's a pin to animation that gets set. Maybe once I turn on match animation, like glue to animation and all that stuff. If it jiggles, you should mess around with damping. So yeah, I don't know. There's the global, or there's damping ratio for both bend and stretch. But in terms of the actual constraints, there's not really controls with it, with this attribute method. So with these constraints, then you do have control over damping ratio and just overall stiffness. So that was my reasoning or thought process behind building out specific pin additional constraints. Kieran, how's it going? We're deep in the I guess not too deep in the sauce, but yeah, we're building a Vellum feather hero kind of feather simulation. But yeah, so it's still a bit explosive. Yeah, I don't know, adjusting the stiffness or as well the damping ratio. They tend to hook each other. So yeah, I think some of these, I guess that is what causes them to get permanently messy, is like once they become unhooked, then they become unclumped, then they form different clumps and stuff like that. It might be this bend stiffness. This issue right now should be fixable with some Vellum stuff. I'm not sure what. I'm not sure which one is post sim with hair clumping. Yeah, so the reference I have is quite chaotic, but there could be some different ways to achieve it. I'm trying to think what setting would let me take a look at just the hair. It could be, I guess the thickness doesn't seem to be an issue. We'll just go back to this. Choose an interesting topic. Yeah, I don't know, just trying to find something that was a good like jumping off or progression of moving in further into Vellum. Something that is like not too it's like building blocks, kind of like not too challenging or not too big of a step from the things that we were working on before. So I don't know if this it just seems weird that it's like when I just bring the bend up too high. It seems to be something to do with the orientation. But if we turn that off, What do you think? That's cool for some corals. Yeah, you could do like anemones or stuff like that. But yeah, it seems like it was just the orientation being too... so I guess the update was being too harshly applied, if that makes sense. Bit of a gotcha, right? What's poppin'? Echo 3D, how's it going? So yeah, I think orientation, just set that to soft, and we could probably go back up. Oof, still seems a bit unstable. Let me try just going slower with this update speed. Maybe it should be limited to a degree. Some axis. Yeah, it might be to do with you think we should just constrain it to be two-dimensional. You got a bit busy finishing Ghosts of Tsushima. That's how you pronounce it? Is it Tsushima? I've heard a lot of stories. I've heard a lot of buzz about that game. Echo 3D. So I'm just setting up a Vellum simulation based off of kind of a feather. So using Houdini, are you somewhat familiar with Houdini? But yeah, doing some Vex stuff. This is setting up the kind of outline of the feather shape, the bulkiness or whatever of it. And then I'm using the Vellum hair cloth wire grain simulator in Houdini to try to add some dynamics or some motion and stuff to it. But yeah, we could even build, if you wanted to, you could build constraints connecting the barbs to get them hooked, to treat them like they're hooked together. I don't know what the best way is to do that though. But yeah, so I'm just trying to kind of get things stabilized. We have like a somewhat working system. We were making some attributes. So with Houdini, you can assign values to geometry. Like here, I've created a bend stiffness attribute. And then I'm just ramping it or remapping it along the length of the geometry and stuff. So that's influencing the dynamics of the solver to either make the wire or the hair more stiff or loose, depending on the length or whatever you set that value to. Just nerding out. But yeah, I don't know. I guess this stiffness, whenever I go too high with it, it seems to add a bit of instability. And then I don't know with the bottom stuff. Maybe not having too many that are like tapered to be too short. The shorter ones seemed like they were getting too stiff for whatever reason. I don't know about this. I might go back a little bit more. Pop Fluid left such a lasting impression on your CPU and you had to restart? I've never had to completely reboot my entire operating system or computer. Like usually my Houdini scene or session or whatever will just be kind of borked. Stream at 2. Maybe the Twitch and stuff like that is using a good amount of GPU as well. So I think the pop fluid, it has OpenCL turned on by default. So it might have been really crushing your graphics card. I used to have that happen with Mudbox in college. Like Mudbox could bake ambient occlusion maps and stuff using your GPU. And whenever I did it on OS X, the entire like UI would just, even the animation of the dock, like going up and down would take like 10 minutes just for the, it was like the GPU priority was like overridden by the simulation or the rendering or whatever. Yeah, it could have just been a memory leak or something like that. John, a bit out of topic, but I'm using Houdini on Windows 10 and Windows is so buggy. I don't know, why would you recommend Linux? What are the downsides using Linux compared to Windows? I believe it was like VFX, I think his name's VFX Arabia. Other people have done VFX. I believe other people have done maybe this isn't his name. But I think other people have done benchmarks. I thought that was his. Someone prepared like a nice screenshot and stuff like that with it. Whoa, look at that. But yeah, that's yeah, perhaps on the website. I thought maybe oh no, they vanished. But maybe it was just the link. It didn't like it. Yeah, I thought they had a blog. There it is. Yeah, I don't remember where it was posted. Let me see if the socials. So generally with Linux, the idea is just that it's a bit more optimized. Can't get this. It's like the infinite scroll is taking over. You found it. Thank you, Jabra. So Linux, Linux tends to be more optimized for memory management and stuff like that. So CPU or like very math and calculation intensive tasks can run a bit better on Linux than on Windows. So you can see here the times that it's taking him to perform these benchmarks, simulation or grains are slightly faster using Linux. So in terms of performance, that's a bit of a reason. Another thing is just with licensing. So Linux is free. You don't need to keep paying for maintenance or subscriptions or whatever like that. You don't need to worry about new versions, like new updates and stuff. Kind of Windows, I've had problems before having to turn off automatic update or whatever. So it's a bunch of different reasons, but just I also prefer using the shell scripting and stuff like that. It's that set up that way. A lot of the bigger visual effects studios use Linux, so it can be handy to know for that as well. Random Windows update sucks big time. Yeah, it's apparently there's like ways to turn it off from what people have told me, but the other thing with Windows is that every new version I've tried, like the control panel and settings and stuff like that, are always in a slightly different location. So yeah, for me personally, it's just Linux is kind of a bit of a jump to make at first, but once you do it and figure out your settings and things that your preferences and stuff, it's a bit more stable, I found, or just a bit more reliable. Control panel is total garbage. They've been redesigning it every version, right? So I'm gonna try making some custom constraints. Maybe before I do that, I'm gonna do one thing with the interpolation here. We're going from completely sideways to completely straight up. What I might do is just multiply the curve view by like 0.8. I don't know. I was trying to adjust it so that they never went, you know what I mean, like completely straight up. Old School Jack, thank you for the tier 1. I appreciate it. I don't know if we do it something like this. It's a bit wonky. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was better leaving this all the way at 1. Just leave it how it was. But yeah, so I'm going to try building some custom constraints. So with this connect adjacent pieces, I think what I can do, maybe just add delete geometry but keep points. So you just have a point cloud. Get rid of the primitives or the base constraints, and then you do connect adjacent pieces, set it to points. This is a bit too many search points. But what we can do is maybe replicate like the barbs sticking together or attaching to each other. In certain areas, we could delete some of these maybe if we need to. It looks like just spatially they were getting a bit kind of broken up. Just see how this works. So if we're kind of replicating these constraints, we do need to be a bit careful because there is like specific bits of information that they require when they set them up. So you definitely want the rest length that tells it how long to try to keep the constraint. I don't know about this other, how much of the other stuff we need. You can turn this checkbox on to automatically calculate the rest length. I don't know if it's gonna work. Could be making a mess here. Let me just try completely overriding it. Yeah, there's 1D noise along the barb length that could work well. Or you're just talking about going this way. Yeah, I guess this is the main curve view. I'm just gonna try to to verify to see if it's working. Whoa. So I think it has to do with the strengths. I don't know if we want to merge this. And like here, you'd see we want the stiffness. If we're calling it bend or stretch, these we'll probably want to use them as just to stretch, to keep them close together. So I should be able to call this type name as stretch shear. The stiffness is a really high value. So I think just doing attribute create, we want to make sure we're doing primitive attributes and we're doing stiffness. Really big number. Could test this. I think just because it doesn't know what type of constraint, it's kind of freaking out. We do another primitive string. It's gonna be the type. We could just stretch. I think did I spell that right? I don't know if it needs to be stretch shear. Whoa. Looks like that was the proper name to use. Nice stream. Yeah, I'm starting to get a bit lost with some of this technical stuff. But yeah, what I was trying to do was get these some of those barbs and stuff sticking together. I ended up like building my own, trying to build my own constraints, but it looks like I've gotten a bit ahead of myself here. we entered the sauce zone briefly. So yeah, what I was trying to do was create constraints to attach things together. But like if you look inside the way that they're building constraints, it's quite complex. I don't know if I was missing perhaps some of these attributes like rest length or ridge. It's a copy of rest length, that's always possible. Can make a copy of it and see if that's it. I might abandon this. I might be doing too much. Just do source, destination, copy. This needs to be a primitive. Yeah, I think I'm leading, might be leading folks astray with some of this. It's possible I just have too many constraints, because this connects, like, is it just attaching too many things together? It's a bit weird that this, let me try a couple of things. I do convert line, add, remove unused. Oof. Still didn't like that. Yeah, I think I'm not going to be able to do that without more research. I guess if you wanted to like hack it together, you could try perhaps merging some of the stuff up there before, and then maybe post sim, like deleting it. It looks like this is might have issues because I'm missing some attributes and messed around with things a bit too much. All right, this is a mess. We're gonna get rid of it. So we're just back with the default feather settings. I'm probably gonna have to do some research and look into a better way to tie some of these barbs together. Building custom constraints, or I think that there's like a side effects sanctioned or good method to do it. One thing I might try is just putting some more barbs in, getting some HD high definition detail. I still haven't been able to get very good noise going along things. Might try just adjust the swirl size to try to get a little bit more detail going along things. See what happens. Yeah, I don't know. Overall, some of these are feeling a bit too loose. I feel like the magic values we were talking about earlier are a bit hard to achieve right now. So the hair clump node, I believe there's different uses for it, but I'm not too sure about having it set up here. Basically what it will do, I'm not getting too much success with this. It seems like my bend is too strong right now. It's more of like I would think of it more as like a modeling kind of tool. It's starting to feel a little bit more interesting. And then I think this top force, the pulse length, I just want to make the noise update more slowly, less like frantic. I think some of this is just from the barbs like wiggling back and forth. But if we just do a grid hair generate, we use this I think it was the Wednesday stream to do some like grass or fur, or we did like kind of a rug or a mop or something like that. But just use this to initialize your hair, and then I think you could get it with hair clump. So it just needs the skin in the other input. So this is kind of what it does, based off of the number of guides and stuff that you have. We'll start to pinch them together. So it's kind of a post-process, or I don't know if... Could try it and see what happens. Might have issues because it's missing the attribute. So I set it to scale using the attribute. Let me just go reduce the topology, the amount of stuff we're simulating. Then we'll turn off that scale by attribute. So it looks like we still need to adjust the roots, but it looks like in terms of building the constraints, it's not doing anything super fancy to tie the tips together. So I think we'd still kind of have the same issue. What I would do in that case is, like, right here, just try to do some free simulation, like deformation, to get these individual barbs sticking together a bit more in certain areas. Kind of building your own clump. I don't think that this clump will fit in because it needs like the guide skin. Could try it and see what happens. I don't think it will work though. Like basically we would want this to be the hair, and then I think this wire, like it's just doing a thing to find the closest surface. It might need more information. It's kind of like fit is expecting a lot of attributes, I think. You could start to examine some of the outputs and try to rebuild it or see what's going on, but I think it needs the skin prem and skin prem UV attributes to function properly. Let's go back to the attribute scaling. I don't know if maybe this damping ratio, bring it back to where it was. It was just adjusting the orientation pin type to soft that was fixing like a little bit of that jiggling or bounciness. I think maybe this damping was causing us some issues with the getting the magic numbers. Maybe with the top force, just adjust this swirl scale to be stretched out along the feather. It's just a bit too compressed before. Yeah, I don't know, seems a bit frustrating right now with these this bend stiffness doesn't seem to be kicking in as much as I'd like. Could be I was just at a pretty bad range earlier. I might try promoting it maybe to I'm not sure if it needs to be a primitive attribute. It's possible it only uses the root value. We should be able to go back to the visualizing these constraints. Maybe getting back with the blast just to isolate bend. non-selected. If I look at the spreadsheet, we should only have our bend and yeah, then I should be able to take a look at the stiffness. But that's definitely getting it onto the geometry onto the constraints on a good. It's doing the right thing there. Could have been one of the situations with just too many points on the it's like too many points, not enough substeps perhaps, that it couldn't stabilize the values. What do you think? You can't make an attribute with noise based off curve view on the points? Yes, so Steve was talking about adjusting I was trying to build constraints to get these barbs sticking together, but I couldn't. I took a W, I took a F with that. I took a L, I guess. But now I'm just trying to kind of verify that this stuff is working. We could do an additional noise, like, so if we just do visualize the bend stiffness, you can do like a world space or object space noise, attribute noise, and just set it to multiplicative, just one-dimensional, like a black and white value. Bend stiffness, you can see it changed a little bit there. Getting some different element sizes. Could just try out some of these and see what happens. Going to be a bit lazy and ask it here. No worries, that's what the chat's for. Can I set the dead attribute on flip particles based on the position Y? I have a lot of fluid flowing off my object. I have to save some space. I want to delete all the particles I can't see. Yes, you should be able to set the dead attribute on the flip solver. So it's looking a little bit better. It's possible my stiffnesses are just going too low. Like I was multiplying by too low of a number that was causing them to jiggle out too much. Let me try bypassing that one for right now. But player 2. So we do another DOP network. If you look at the flip solver with particle motion, so I guess it's not. You might have to turn on reap particles. I think you can do it by just setting the dead, because it has a pop solver inside of it, and It might be the very last step over here. But I've done it. I've definitely done it before. Setting dead should be fine. You can also delete them yourself. But yeah, you should be able to set it with dead and it will delete them. So I think also is perhaps just setting a bit of additional drag and then the velocity damping can get rid of that like super high frequency jittering and stuff like that. I think it's just still a matter of finding good values. It's a bit tricky because I'm multiplying by so many different kind of factors. Like getting rid of this. So basically right here, it's just going from 100% to 50%. Because that multiplies or modulates the existing setting here, I think it was just super easy to get out of hand with finding the proper high end and low end range for stiffnesses. Let's go back to the shaft. So this one, could I run something like a point wrangle outside my DOP where I say if e.y is greater than value p.dead? Yeah, if p.dead isn't the exact, it's kind of a pseudocode. You have to be careful with it, but yeah, not being perfect vex. You could set it like that. The easiest way is to just do yeah, so you could remove the points directly in the vex. That might be a bit slower depending on, if you have like a ton, like millions of flip particles, it's best to just do one deletion at one step of the solve. But you could, the quickest way in vex is if you just do I at dead equals at p.y is greater than 1. That's all that you need. And then when the y position is above 1, this will be true, and the dead will be true as well. But yeah, so if you're deleting like a bunch of particles in different wrangles, it will be slower than to do one deletion or one operation, one stage of the solve. But if you're just doing purely like user-friendly functionality, sometimes it can be better to split it out. But I think that's kind of the purpose of the dead attribute, is just to manage things that way, to keep things optimized. Suddenly opened and said cool zone. Beckoned you in. It's terrific. It's not a full cool zone. It's a half. It's a warm. It's a mild zone, perhaps, today. But yeah, building this feather out, I think I just have too many factors that I'm trying to balance right now. Maybe that amount with collisions and stuff was too many. It's possible turning off like self collisions might have just been too much interference with itself. If you have a ton of like little barbs, it's possible just turning off self collisions will give you more like perhaps predictable results. me try just turning off that deformation. Can you drive the number of a guided color from top to bottom so that the top lines look for fewer guides and they would stick together, whereas the bottom looks frizzy? Yeah, you could. I'm not sure in terms of like building and managing constraints how to do that. So I'm kind of thinking in terms of Vellum, like you might just want to bake that kind of stuff into the geometry, if that makes sense. So at the start, I had kind of talked about that very quickly. But yeah, so if you do a noise before you initialize all the attributes, then those physical settings or parameters will kind of get baked in. So I think doing like a different mask with this noise, right now this is going no noise at the bottom and full at the top. Could do fit range and flip it around. And then this roughness here, just to get a bit more chaos or turbulence into the noise. I think we want this. We're going closer to the image, we just kind of remap this signal a little bit. And then maybe just like a higher frequency. So we also need to worry about going from the base to the tip. We have the bend stiffness attribute, but it's a bit unreliable to use that. Trying to think what the best way is to do it. We could do this stuff maybe in just a different order. Just gonna get rid of this, some of this other stuff for right now. So the first thing we'll do is this deformation, and we'll do it that way so we can factor in the bend stiffness before it gets remapped. Pop it in. Oof. Bent stiffness. Got a lot of spelling errors today. All right. So that I was just cranking this up to really get like a bit of frizz going. We could try that and just see what happens. So like, because that kinks or frizz is like baked in to the geometry, should stick around a little bit easier. I think my overall bend is a bit too, I don't know, I'm having trouble finding good good settings and stuff for everything today. Maybe just try to move some of that stuff back to the default. Oof. Alright, the other thing I think is this jiggling. We don't want this to be updated over time. We just want it to be static. Getting there? I don't know. Yeah, there's just a bit of like flickering and stuff that's a bit impossible to get rid of. All right. Yeah, I'm not sure. Simulate less curves. Doing kind of a clump up-res. Yeah, that could be a better way to work. So you're kind of talking about like a guide simulation and then build out the high res. I think that kind of might be a better way to work in general. Just like you gotta have more substeps and quicker interactivity and stuff with less geometry. I'm gonna try cranking this, this wobble distortion up a little bit more. Just to make it a little bit more interesting. Yeah, these ones really don't like it. I think it's just too low with the bend stiffness. It's a spider. Whoa. It caused a problem. I was trying just to like up-res the curves. It looked like the resample, it lost track of the root group and caused an issue. This seems like the bend stiffness and stuff is a bit more responsive. It's just overall, I don't know why it's so unstable. Seems a bit more stable at least. Yeah, I don't know, it's a little bizarre. Like you'd think you could go back now and move the values up. Looks like it was maybe just a matter of getting some values that were working better. Just gonna go with the lazy man's approach to stabilizing things, just keep adding drag. Alright, so it has to be something related to this. Ah, just in time. You read my my mind. Yeah, it seems like that damping ratio is pretty no, sorry for bothering you. This is perfect timing. Yeah, it seems like the damping ratio does help quite a bit. Hakibaru, thank you. So it seems a little bit better with the increased damping ratio. I guess that is the best way to reduce. I was trying some bad methods with the drag. It's a bit, like I was saying, it's just a bit lazy or brute force. It will kill all of the motion, kind of. Like it just removes all of the interest, a bit too much of the interesting things, if you do it too much. Let's see how many curves we can handle. Big differences in the last 15 minutes. Yeah, it's a little bit better. I think this started to get closer to some better numbers. The damping ratio for sure, I think, is the biggest thing that that helped. All right, let's see how much power we can get out of this. I guess you press the D key over the viewport, you do geometry wire width, and then you could get a better, maybe you want full anti-aliasing if you do that. The anti-aliasing is trying to fix like some of that, I don't know, it's a bit of like more or is some kind of artifacts. But yeah, let's see what happens. You got it work, recaching. It, you set the death. You set the death. Let's go. Your brain is gonna get the death attribute. It seems like it's not scaling super well. It might just be the noise that I have, but it's looking somewhat cool. Your brain, or maybe this the sleeping attribute is set to 1. I think my brain's sleeping attribute is set to 1 right now. So yeah, it seems like it's just a bit too still a bit too chaotic. I think this damping ratio still needs to be maybe a bit higher. I don't know. Trying to think about adding more resolution. Still getting subdivided as well. Could start to be like too much. All right, gonna try going back down for a second. And just try getting more flopping. Yeah, it's a bit of an issue with these not getting reoriented. You can mess with the pop wind so it doesn't flick. You think that that's predominantly from the... I could switch to pop wind. I'm doing pop force right now. Let me see if I can fix this issue right here. I've used this attribute reorient before to fix the issue I'm having. I don't know if it's gonna work in this case. Because I am like setting everything to the normal. Let me try. Try setting this to up. And computing a normal before for it to whoa. Not 100% what I was after. Some bounding box. Yeah, I mean, it should be possible with these attributes. I'm just not doing a very good job. Right now. I'm not doing the proper method. I'm just gonna go back to how it was. So like basically what you should be able to do is have this reference geometry and then remap it to the deforming geometry and have these vector directions be like interpolated properly. That's what this reorient is traditionally meant to do. My brain is still set to sleeping, which might be the big issue. You might also be able to do like this attribute interpolate, but I don't know if it's gonna work. Oof, didn't like it. Yeah, it's not working for me today. I think ideally you would want to do like a cross product and do a bit more maths or something to get that working better. All right, I'm just gonna try to do this properly, and this might be the last thing for today. So the static ref was lower res. It is possible. I think that it should be okay this way. So I think what I want to do using the orient along curve is to generate the first normal. We want to do it after we deform to get it working properly. So then my direction here or up can be the normal. And the direction I was thinking you want to do like a, oops, probably not the best idea to do it that way. Let me just try overwriting it like this. Ooh, didn't like it. Yeah, I mean, it was already seeming to be a bit more stable before. Seems like it's just the tip of it that's a bit of an issue. Not what we wanted. All right, go back to where we were. Could be my mirroring operation is no longer valid because I'm not working on a straight line anymore. You'd want to do like a rotation or something. I'm just gonna leave it like that for right now. What a shame. All right, I have an idea. So I think maybe we do this. Didn't like it. I was thinking we could like do the mirror first and then blend between so it was like a shared up direction. I guess this isn't gonna work this way because it's just going up. I messed it up. I'm sorry, guys. Maybe just do it like that. Not as nice, but we'll see what happens. So it's at least slightly better, 20% better. Let's try this with a higher resolution. is tricky. Yeah, the doing orientation, managing that kind of stuff with Houdini always becomes a bit tricky with like order of operations and the maths. The maths will get you. There's more proper ways to do it, but they just require a bit more vex and stuff. So, like, the ideal way to do that, to add noise to geometry and have it deform properly, is that attribute deform node. But I was being too small-brained to use it. I didn't want to like redo my noise functions with it. Yeah, there's different things you could do. The attractor points is interesting. That would be like an additional that could be a way to get clumping and stuff working. So what I was referring to is just like with a line, adding the normal to it. Just do it like that, maybe. So usually when you do, I'm just gonna add a sign to the x coordinate. So you can see as this is deforming, the normal vector isn't no longer like valid, or I guess you would say orthogonal to the curve. If you do the point deform with noise functions, this will properly like recalculate your normal. You have to do it based off of this, using this pose instead of the P. So you kind of have to redo your noise functions and stuff like that, and it can be a bit of a pain to adjust. So then it's properly doing that stuff. Yeah, it's like a technical way to do what I'm doing. Basically, it's based off of this pose. It will evaluate the function at different points to find the derivatives. So it's just a super math sauced way to do it. It would be nice if side effects included a VOP method to do it, so you could work with your noises and stuff, but it's the only way that they've implemented it right now is with the wrangle for deformation. But yeah, you could usually use the reorient. Sometimes you always run into problems like as a curve crosses the origin, trying to recalculate the normal is a bit of a problem. It's also just could be a problem because I'm using the normal explicitly. Like Houdini treats that a little bit different than other attributes. Like you could see I had to turn that off here to get it to work perfectly. But yeah, I think I'm just gonna give up on it for right now. Pretty cool. It's like a wave. Whoa. Yeah, he's a little scraggly. It's got some issues with it's a mangy bird to drop this feather. But yeah, hopefully it's a good learning process. Probably gonna leave it here for today. Ugly feather. So this is 29. Too many fermented apples. It's like maybe one of the Disney like in Cinderella or something, when one of the animals gets like soot all over it or something. It's like been in the oil spill or something. This is the August 29th. Oh my goodness. So it's almost the end of the month. What is this month? 2 more days. It's gonna be September. Gonna have to wear a sweater. Yeah, so this is just gonna be Vellum Feather version 1. Yep. Thanks everyone for hanging out, helping me with a bit of the tips. We almost got all the way there. Part of the way there. Yeah. Yeah, I still need to figure out about tomorrow. There's a 10% chance it will be another day off, but I'm hoping, or not, hoping to make it work. But I'll keep you updated if you check the Discord with it. But thanks everyone for tuning in, helping out, viewing, advising, critiquing. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of the day.